you got to get your hands dirty if you want to solve something in the EV space. I think a lot of companies trying to build like a sprinkle on top SaaS solution. It doesn't cut it, right? You have to go deep, right? Actually, when 2013, 2014, you walked around telling people we'll build an EV which will be faster than a petrol scooter, they'll be like, "What are you smoking?" Right? Like it just was not believable.
Right.
But now, like fast forward to 2019, 2020, everyone's like, EV to is faster. I get it. It's obvious.
Right.
So at the end of the day, swap is an operational band-aid.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like, hey, I'll take your battery and then you keep going. I'll figure out how to charge in the back end. And as vehicles, if you try to scale up an ecosystem on swap, you'll actually end up needing 2x batteries for every vehicle, which is the opposite of what we should be doing. So I have a lot of respect for the software industry and what it did for India, but it's about time we move on and actually build real tech. And something people don't know about me, I'm very, very introverted.
Are you introverted?
Oh, massively.
I wouldn't believe that, Arun.
Exactly. So you could, for example, I would use LTO, right, for stationary storage. There are something called flow batteries.
Right.
Very different technology.
Absolutely.
Which
very low cost technology.
Very low cost technology, high volume, high weight. It's totally fine, right? So the cost per cycle there is far better, but you can't actually use these things for mobility, right? So, and the other problem of just how are you going to have a vehicle parked and connected for that long, right? So I think for all these reasons, I'm not a big believer of VTG. I think obviously renewables, and renewables need energy storage, but I think that technology tangent is very different than mobility.
No, I totally take your point on this one. So it's a good technology to have, but not necessarily the most feasible technology, especially for batteries inside a vehicle. I think that's what you want.
Yeah, not commercially feasible.
Not commercially feasible. Yeah. Now, that brings me to one question, which Arun, you're creating technology. You're sitting on top of these batteries. You're creating the codes which manage these batteries. And the number of batteries for every, you said 100 battery packs per month?
Yeah, 150, yeah.
So for every month you are having 100 battery packs out in that, and you do control them, right? You have access to these batteries. Yeah. So you are not only a energy, but there's a lot of data that you have. Don't you think that's a problem? Because these batteries are moving, there's data privacy issues. So what is this entire angle about data privacy? And suddenly, I mean, it's like a mobile phone, right? Electric vehicles or your batteries is essentially a mobile phone. So what's your take on the fact that there's so much data that's going to flow around? So anything you've thought this through?
Yeah, I mean, as an energy company, the things that we track are very different and not very privacy sensitive. For example, we don't really sit and track GPS or location. That doesn't matter to us, right? What we track is battery health. Like we fundamentally are tracking voltage, current, temperature. Only 3 things you can read. So we're reading all of that, and we are making inferences on top of that, right? And we're also giving inferences back to all our stakeholders on top of that. So that's how we operate. And data privacy as a problem, I think, is something that needs to be solved for. And it's a multi-stakeholder problem, right? Today, I mean, a lot of questions. The European Union has a different opinion on who owns the data. Right? India is still trying to figure out who owns the data. Is it the manufacturer, is it the owner, is it the financier? In India, we have 5-6 different stakeholders fundamentally that need solving for. So, I mean, for us, we don't own the vehicle. We don't make the vehicle. So, for us, we sort of respect our boundaries. We're an energy company, so we care only about the battery.
But are those boundaries respected? I'm not talking about Exponent, but like what happened in the battery space, where you rightly said that people just did not invest in the R&D. So, do you think in the EV space also there's going to be people who are going to take some leverage with the boundaries on data?
I think there will be opportunities placed there. Here I tend to be an optimist in general. I think anyone who's not respecting boundaries eventually will not win out. I think the EV system is very collaborative today. Very quick. It's not like 1900s. Today everyone knows everyone. Companies have to work together. Not one company cannot solve this problem. Multiple companies have to come together and really put heads and souls together to like solve this problem. So I think the bad players will get weeded out, and I think collaboratively people will find an answer.
So just let's go back and let's take the amount of information. Let's take case of China for that matter. Where do you think all this information? What's happening with all this information? Battery tech, the vehicles? Is this somehow is it managed properly? Because where I fear is we don't have someone to look up to on those angles. So, and that's recipe for disaster.
I honestly think the privacy problem in EVs is not as much as like say cell phones or
Is it?
laptops or because if you really get down to it and look at most of the data apart from location, it's not that sensitive.
Okay.
Right? At the end of the day, it's a bunch of parameters on your motor temperature, battery temperature. So if you really declutter that and say what are companies tracking, it's not as sensitive as like say your cell phone, where like right from who you like Instagram or Facebook, like those apps to like cell phones, to, where are you surfing, to what are you buying, to your credit card information, to pretty much everything about you. Like as so personal data is far more sensitive, right? And
Perfect.
that is actually not there on EVs apart from location. So again, you have infotainment systems in EVs. Again, it goes back to the whole Android and Apple sort of ecosystem problems, right? So I think privacy as an issue needs to be solved in the digital space, and it's a common problem. Whether you're logging into Google Maps through your phone or through your digital
So you're saying that in the so-called brouhaha about data privacy in EV is not as big as it is made out to be.
Yeah,
There are ways and means to
because
manage
let's say you switch off a location, which you go incognito. Rest of it, I think there's a couple of ethical questions on like should this be shared information, insurance guys, etc. Right? But like beyond that, there's no deeper sort of layer of technology. Like if you look at laptops or like computers, a lot of IoT or not IoT back then, but it was most like more of error data used to be stored and transferred, right? So it was never a problem until it got personal.
Personal, right?
And so I think a lot of things that are tracked in EVs are more for ensure warranty, so that OEMs can double down on performance, at least the good ones. Right? So like,
And since it comes to privacy laws, so let's get down to another big stakeholder in the ecosystem is the people who make the rules, the laws. So what do you think India has done right, wrong in the EV ecosystem or the mobility ecosystem, the clean mobility ecosystem? Any views on that? You've tracked the journey, right, of how this thing has evolved. So what do you think is going good, that we have as a country, as a nation, have done good in the EV space?
I think there's been very strong messaging, right, that we are going electric as a country. The sort of mission orientation for the whole nation to say we are all going electric, I think it's been one of the best worldwide, right? And I think that's very important. It all starts at the top. Right? All starts from the government saying India needs to go electric for XYZ reasons. And I think the policy framework around FAME, starting with demand incentives, which is I think the perfect thing to do. You don't solve for supply. You always solve for demand first,
right?
And then you start ironing out supply chain. Then the PLI incentives. So bunch of those things I think were timed perfectly well. So if you look at it, I mean, the rate at which India is going electric is fantastic, right, compared to anyone else in the world. And we need to, like, this is the only answer for us with respect to self-sustenance.
Right.
So I think from that point of view, clear strategic need, clear set of policies. And India's got the brains, India's got the capital, India's got the largest market. So I don't think there's going to be a point of view where India is going to lag. With ICN, we always played this catch-up game, right? It was quite annoying for me as like a young engineer saying, hey, we'll build cool vehicles, but the answer is no.
Someone has already done it.
Someone's already done it. We're always playing the catch-up game. But now with EV, we're actually building tech that doesn't exist anywhere else in the world. I mean, shameless plug, but nothing in the world charges in 50 minutes, not even cell phones. Right? So we build this entire tech in India, right? So many other cool tech about EVs is built in India. Because globally, it is a global reset. Suddenly, it's 2015, 2020, India's got the largest talent base, largest market, huge capital coming inflow. And it's got harshest set of constraints. Right? So if you look at it like, if you look at fintech, right? The reason we have such amazing, like UPI, right? Like you have to now engineer this thing that works for a billion transactions, 10 rupees per transaction.
So you can't, no one can do it better than us.
No one can do it better than us. Like there's always a lazy answer when it comes to US or European market, right? Just like put a larger battery figure, right? Like so similarly, EV and energy tech, the sort of design, and you also need design, manufacturing, plug together. So I think if you look at policy framework, it's been always focused on design and manufacturing. It's been focused on demand. It's been focused on local demand. So I think pretty great, all of that.
I put it this way, that this is India's opportunity for revolution.
Yeah.
And what we can create here can be exported out to the other world as well. But just one question the other way around is, what do you think could have been done differently? Are there any aspects of on the government side that could have been done differently, both for Exponent or even generally as an EV ecosystem as a whole? Anything that you want to call out?
Actually, I mean, I don't know baseline of what more can be done. We all have our own cribs, right? Like, I mean, operationally.
So what would be your crib? Let's take it.
I mean, it's very operational, right? I think, for example, AIS 156 that came in recently, the way it was brought in, the speed at which it was brought in.
What happened? What happened wrong with that?
Huge disruption, right? Like a lot of companies had planned production. Like, I mean, you were expected to suddenly have new regulations sorted in your battery in 4 to 5 months, right? Which actually creates a lot more problems because now you're rushed to launch a product, right? So, I mean, it's more operational disruption.
But the fact that you also had something which was proprietary, your charging protocol is proprietary, did that also make you uncomfortable that the government was trying to come out with its own set of rules and trying to say, hey, listen, everyone does the same thing together while you were trying to do something proprietary?
No, so that way I think the government has done that right, where they're not standardizing, they're creating safety standards, right, which is great. Anyone building anything should follow safety standards. But I think it's more timelines. I think pretty much everyone got disrupted in supply chains, production timelines. Like suddenly you had to go certify a new battery. So I think it was more operational disruption. But beyond that, I think long-term view, I think AIS 156 is great. One of the safe, stringent most stringent standards in the world. So I think if you want to lead the world in EV tech, you also have to have the most stringent standards in the world. So.
Now this is interesting. I was just trying to see, you have an Ather background. So Tarun, you built Ather together, and hence Ather also started to do something proprietary charging standard. Arun goes to Exponent, again he does the same proprietary. But Ather actually has opened it up. So when do we see Exponent also following suit and opening up?
Today on this podcast.
So are you saying, you can look at the camera and say, are you saying that Exponent is ready to open up their proprietary technology to others? Are you in a place you could do that right now, or you think that's
definitely the objective, right?
There's an objective. Okay.
I think at the end of the day, I mean, personally, we love building. That's where the intent comes from.
Okay.
Even at Ather, we didn't make the standard for fun. It's hard, and no one wants to pick up problems unnecessarily, right? It's just that we were forced to build it because there were a bunch of real reasons why we needed to build it.
Okay.
And when you build it, you might as well open source it because this is the era for collaboration. Like, you can't build your own fort, right? You have to work with everyone. Because like company like Exponent is fully collaborative. We don't make our own vehicles, right? We partner with OEM. We don't run logistics. We don't finance, right? So we work with multiple stakeholders here. So from that point of view, even at Exponent, what are we building? We're building because we think we need to build it. And there's a very first principle approach, and we'll probably write an article on it as to why we are forced to build this. Right? If you want to solve India's energy problems at the price points that India can afford, we need to build this. So,
let's just take us through a journey. I mean, what's your educational background? How did you land up at Ather?
Well, I'm from Bangalore. Did all my schooling there. Did my BTech in IIT Madras. My parents said if you get into IIT Madras, you can stop studying and there'll just be cool stuff that happens there. So I hacked my way somehow into IIT Madras. But once I got there, it was very disillusioning because I thought this was like premium institute. People were building cool stuff all over the place. It was so untrue. There was just a lot more studies and more theory.
That's every engineer's realization.
Right? And I was like, I'm not here to do this. So like, there's only found and then there was a really cool student lab in IIT Madras. It's called Center for Innovation. It's actually modeled on the MIT Media Labs, where there's a budget and students get to allocate budgets to other students to build stuff.
Okay.
Right. 99% of the projects fail, but really cool stuff comes out of it. And as if you actually track hardware or deep tech startups in India, you'll notice most of them are from IIT Madras. Space tech, underwater tech, NDT, I mean, just name it, right? Computer vision, so many companies. And all of them, we were all like, just people wearing shorts sitting next to each other and just hacking away. And most of the projects didn't work for the first couple of years, and eventually it started working. So I met Swapnil there, and Swapnil and I were part of this team that used to build cars and go race it. So I've actually raced a car we built in Silverstone, which is UK Formula 1 circuit. It was like the best moment of my life. And I think when we were there, there was this almost a slap on the face moment, because we were like, hey, we're one of the best colleges in India, and we were really bad in building stuff, hardware. And we would go there, and like an average college would just be building hardware at next level.
Okay.
Right? And that's when it realized that India doesn't build hardware. Like, India just builds software. Like, and it's not bad. My dad was part of the software industry. A lot of risk I can take in life is because my dad gave me a safety net, right? In some sense, like that he didn't have. So I have a lot of respect for the software industry and what it did for India. But it's about time we move on and actually build real tech, right? And I think India didn't do that. In 2010, 2012, there wasn't the concept of building hardware.
Right.
So the idea was we will build hardware company, and I think that's when. So Swapnil and I were part of this team. That's how we knew each other. Arun was actually was more of an entrepreneur than any of us. We were just engineers. Entrepreneurship was accidental. So actually the first idea was battery swap, and we said, okay, like we have to build a vehicle, and all that mattered was we'll get to build a vehicle, and that's about it. Like the concept of building a company, whether the company will be successful, all of that, I think just was more afterthought. But we would get to build an electric vehicle, and it'll be fun. So it just started out of that lab. It was just that, and then since then it's just been. It was borderline stupid also to start an EV company in 2013. I think most people.
That's the time people did not even know what's an
Yeah,
EV.
yeah. But of course there was Tesla, huge inspiration obviously.
And Chevy Bolt.
Yeah, Chevy Bolt, but of course that was not as inspiring. But the Tesla story was inspiring, right? So yeah, that kept us going. And
So when did you join Ather? When did you join?
I was a founding partner at Ather, so I joined in 2013, 2014.
Okay.
Both informally and then formally, and then started. So I was a CPO, which means the head of product, responsible for defining the product and ensuring it got launched, ensuring customers loved it. Then sort of the architect of sorts to figure out what subsystems to be built, to be bought, how will it all come together, the performance, aesthetics, the reliability, and ensuring it worked. So,
and then what's the story after Ather? So why did you leave Ather and why Exponent? How did it all start? Where did it go from there?
Yes, when we started Ather,
because Ather is a great story to be in. I mean, it's an amazing place, and we all are Ather fans. So how come Exponent?
Yeah, I think deep inside, firstly, just love to keep building. I think and step one was, I think, the building process, at least my personal contribution of vehicle design development, I think did a good enough job. And I think there was a much larger problem that we're sort of starting to see. When you started Ather, the problem statement one was to get people to believe EVs can be better. Right. Actually, when 2013, 2014, you walked around telling people, we'll build an EV which will be faster than a petrol scooter, they'll be like, what are you smoking? Right? Like it just was not believable.
Right.
But now, like fast forward to 2019, 2020, everyone's like, EV is faster. I get it. It's obvious. But what's holding you back from going electric? It's actually a whole bunch of other things. Right? Where do I charge? How long will it take? Will my battery last? The cost of all of this. So guys, in some sense, step one is to build a really cool product and change perception about EVs. And it has to be a premium product because of a bunch of other realities. So you start top, but now the question is how do you get all of India to go electric?
Right.
And I don't think that can be achieved by just building more products. You have to solve for this underlying energy problem. And I think it is a power law. I think solving for the energy problem unlocks a whole bunch of other opportunities for faster electrification. So that's my personal excitement.
So it's like moving from solving one problem and moving to the other.
Yeah,
so
that was the vehicle problem, now it's the energy problem.
So that's a typical story of every entrepreneur, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So take us through your entrepreneurship journey in Exponent. And so how did you form Exponent? Who's your co-founder? How did you build a team? Because there's a lot of viewers out there who want to get into the entrepreneurship game, but there are a lot of viewers out there who really want to know entrepreneurship in the EV space. How is it any different? So take us through your journey as an entrepreneur with Exponent.
Yeah, I still don't think I'm qualified enough to talk about entrepreneurship, right? Like I think I'm still a builder at heart. The entrepreneurship is still accidental, and I think that's probably the best way to build anything. I think people who have said, "Oh, I want to be a founder," and for the sake of being a founder or build a company because I want to build a company, I think has never worked. I think the most valuable companies in the world are just ideas people are excited about to build. So I think that's my way of thinking of entrepreneurship. That shouldn't be a core title. I think a core title should be you want to build something from scratch, and I think everything else happens.
I can see that real builder hardware that too.
Anything, it could be software, but hardware is cooler. It's harder, it doesn't make as much money. So like if you're excited about building software,
so
it's easier.
the hardware guys who call it build something. The software guys say, let's code something. But then, so where did you meet your co-founder? How did you come together? Because you told me about your story with Swapnil, but then with Exponent.
Yeah, with Exponent, I think when we started Exponent, I think we had a lot more time and tenure in the industry. So we had a lot more, I think, advantage and access points to people. One of the first guys I called up was Sanjay, who was my co-founder, who actually spent a year with us at Ather, right? But he came from an HUL, IIT Madras as well, supply chain background in HUL. And he was excited about all the things that I wasn't excited about. Like, he was excited about finance, and I was like, I don't want to even look at it. Or he was excited by operations. Like, he's still excited by supply chain, right? And so I said, okay, let's get someone who's the straight opposite of me. And he is the straight opposite of me in every way. And we also had access to like some people from Ather who also came and joined us. But also a lot of other engineers who had just crossed paths in the past. Bunch of us. So there were 8 of us who started Exponent in December 2020.
Yeah, that's there on your website, that photograph, right? Your first team.
Yeah. The first month our project was to build the office. We started out a shed.
So there also you built your office.
Yeah. We actually built our toilet. That was the first 2 weeks.
So I'm going to repeat that. So Arun of Exponent's first product build an Exponent was a
toilet.
How did it come out to that? Building a toilet.
Because we bootstrapped the company right off, and yeah, we had like a shed, and like we could only afford a shed, and so the workplace was decent, but like, obviously we needed to fix our canteen and everything else. So we started over there and just hacking back to tech. And I think that's the best way to start a company, is to go back, get hungry, start from the ground.
So tell me about how important is it to have a good co-founder or a co-founder at all in a startup as an entrepreneur, in your experience as an entrepreneur?
I think the co-founder title matters, but I think you definitely need a team, right? I think you need a founding team that's with you, and it's very complementary to you. Obviously, everyone's got strengths and weaknesses, but a company should have less weaknesses. So you want to find people who are strong in multiple aspects, come together. Don't pick people who are just like you. I think that's how it feels good. But it doesn't work good, and this is very different. You're not friends. You're actually trying to build a company, and I think it also works. It's also true in personal relations. Right? You want a yin and yang. So I think that's always worked for me, whether it's a co-founder team or any other team, right? So I think I've been blessed to have this really solid founding team. And people say entrepreneurship is like lonely. I don't think it's true at all. I think it can be.
That's true, Arun. Having fun all the way along with your team as well.
Yeah.
So how big is your team now?
I think we're now 180 people. Yeah.
180, right?
Including the factory and all that.
And so you have a breakup of how many in each team? What is the kind of team structure that you have?
Almost 120 plus of the team is now in the R&D phase or product development phase, which is design, testing, validation, supply chain, all of that. We have a very small business team, and we also have network ops team, like teams that are responsible for setting up science stations.
Right. So tell me, I mean, in your entrepreneurship journey, and you told me this, that you've had fun all the way, you had a great team working with you, but I would believe that entrepreneur always has this journey which is the ups and downs. So how many downs and what are the kind of downs that you've had? You want to talk about that? Because that could also be a good learning for a lot of viewers out there who really, because there's a lot of glamour around entrepreneurship, startup, but many people fail to see what's behind it all.
Yeah.
While and I know you're really enjoying it, but there would be, if an Arun would have a down moment, which means that everyone would possibly have something. So do you want to talk about that? Any instances where you really felt, was it worth it all? Yeah,
I mean, I think 9 out of 10 times things blow up in a startup, right? And I think that's part of the journey. I think you have to enjoy the journey and not the results. Right, so you can't hack your way into the results, because the results will never be good enough. Like, you'll get there and you'll be like, oh, it's not good enough. I want to build more. So I think you'll never be happy if you're focusing on where you're arriving at. I think the journey matters, and it's the only thing that matters. So you have to enjoy that daily hustle of. So we have something called break, believe, build at Exponent. The journey matters. Like, you got to constantly keep breaking stuff, rebuilding it.
So when was the last time you felt broken down?
On a person, I think if you time it small enough. Like if you have micro breaks every day, there's no large break, right? So I think that's one way that we look at it. I mean, I'm sure you see this all the time. Like there's stuff on fire every day. There's stuff that needs fixing every day. Not literally on fire. Our batteries don't catch fire.
That's an EV guy talking about fire. It really blows up in your face.
Metaphorical fires, right? Yeah, I mean, I think there are days where you ask yourself. I think it's more like you are trying to solve a hard problem. So I think you do have a lot of introspective days. Like, what are you not doing enough? I think more than down days. I think I have more impatient days. It's like,
wow, that's nice. Yeah.
like, I feel like we haven't done enough always.
So what's a typical day in the life of Arun? How does it look like? Let's.
It starts with coffee. Like I think religiously.
So
else
I
my day
should change
doesn't
it
start.
coffee with Maxson.
Coffee, yeah. No, this is nice. Like it's got alliteration. No, so yeah, it starts with coffee, and most of my time. I think with Exponent, there's a new role of obviously not just building but also being an entrepreneur of sorts, right? So there's also a lot of working with external stakeholders. And something people don't know about me is I'm very, very introverted.
Are you introverted?
Oh, massively.
I wouldn't believe that, Arun.
Massively.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think massively.
So is it just because of you and me that we're talking? So
I'm sure. Like I take a long time to like start speaking. Of course, you put me in front of camera and ask me to talk. Have opinions. I have opinions, and it's easy to talk about it. But I'm actually very introverted.
So for this introverted Arun, what's it? How long is your day? How long is an entrepreneur's day, if I were to put it that way?
Yeah, so I split my week into internal days and external days. So there are days where I spend a lot of time with the team and building. That's my source of energy. And then there are external days, right? Like so, which is part of the job, right? So you got to do both. So find a balance between the two. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of sales, right? Like you're selling all the time. So I think finding a balance between the two. And I think growing as a salesperson has been like my biggest learning curve in the last 3 to 4 years, right?
Yeah, you call yourself an introvert and for doing sales. And
yeah, that was the biggest question mark I had on myself.
But then an entrepreneur is always a salesman all the time, right? He's always selling internally to his team, to external, and to investors as well, which brings me to the next question.
Yeah.
So how did you manage to get this huge funding? So how did it end? What has been your funding, let's call a sequence of things? How has it been?
Touch wood, we've always found capital at times when we weren't actively going and raising for it. I think we've been very lucky. And then the only time we went and raised was our very first seed round. And no one believed that something will charge 50 minutes. We sort of said, okay, come on, let's take this leap of faith. And since then, we've had amazing investors who just doubled down with us. We did a Series A last year with Lightspeed. We did 8 Roads and TDK sort of invested in us recently. And for example, 8 Roads, we've been speaking for a year. They've been looking at our progress. So I think one something I realized is play to our strengths. So probably I will never be the best. I mean, there are founders who just like, oh, I'll go raise $100 million.
Yeah.
But then there are founders who can just build at a rapid pace. So I think our clear strategy was we'll just build so fast that people will have to invest in us, right? So we took the second strategy. So we've been very focused on building. So.
Oh, that's a nice strategy to say, okay, I just build so fast that I attract enough energy and investments.
Yeah.
So for the latest one, what's the kind of valuation that you...
We're $100 million value.
100 million. And that's in a very short span of time. So speed really is on your side. So for those people in the EV, those entrepreneurs or individuals wanting to get into the EV space and who look up to you, there are enough and many fan members for you here in this room as well.
Likewise, you should come to the Exponent office. A lot of people think Maxson is one of the smoothest talkers. Like, I think you have a lot of charisma around.
Thanks for that, but to the public, for those who would want to get into this entrepreneurship journey in the EV space, what are some of the things you would want to call out? Good, bad, watch outs. You have anything to tell people in this space?
Yeah, I think I might be very biased, but like you gotta get your hands dirty. if you want to solve something in the EV space. I think a lot of companies trying to build like a sprinkle on top SaaS solution. It doesn't cut it, right? You have to go deep. Either you're going deep in operations, you're going deep in hardware, you're going deep in energy or logistics. Pick your piece. But you got to go deep. You got to build something real. It's got to be on the ground because this is a real problem.
No, I really like it because what you said, go deep, because there's a lot of people who always felt that, hey, it's EV, it's a new sunrise industry, just put my hands into it and something is going to come out of it. And we've seen many companies
absolutely
burning themselves out in that space. So I think people don't realize that it's important to get deep into
absolutely
a transitioning ecosystem. I'm very happy you picked that up,
Yeah, people. This is like the gold rush of our era, right? Everyone thinks like, I'll just like change my LinkedIn profile and I'm part of an EV founder, like, or I'm starting up an EV. Like, we'll make it in hack it in 2 years. Nothing is going to happen in 2-3 years. This is a harder problem statement than software or SaaS, and I think a lot of people are getting that.
Right.
Like, the investors are getting that. Employees are getting that.
Are the investors really getting that? Because I remember conversations a couple of years ago when we had to explain EVs, and not everyone understood. So, I mean, I found myself trying to educate the investors. So, where in the movement, in the education timelines of things for the investors, where do you think the investors are today? Are you still having conversation where you need to explain, hey, what you're doing, why fixed batteries versus swappable, and where I'm going next? But
I love that question because it's like my favorite question. We spent 10 years thinking of this question. So that's like my easiest question. It's like the question you're most prepared for. Like,
I can wake you up in there.
Yeah. It's like no. So I think investors are smart in when they enter a segment. And I think there has been a definite pivot the last 2-3 years, where it's abundantly clear that the most valuable companies in the next 30 years will be, or the next 10 years, next 5 years will be energy tech or green or climate or anything around climate, right?
Okay.
So I think it's a no-brainer that people want and now see the reason to invest in these. 10 years ago, the capital couldn't necessarily speed things up, right? There were a lot of constraints. But today, the rate at which technology is sort of evolving, the sort of market that's now ready for it, I think capital is finding its place in the EV space, in the climate tech space. So I think.
But for someone who's actually raised money in the so-called winters of things, and there's a lot of negativity around fundraising, valuation, especially in the edu-tech, fintech. And somehow, some of the things that are happening in the EVs, do you think this is also going to filter down to the EV space, where the investors are going to question out on investments in this space, etc.? Do you think that's happening?
Actually, no. I think there are obviously going to be investors who never believe in this, and that's fine. Like there are going to be people who don't believe in this, and there are going to be enough investors who believe in this. And I think investors who truly are serious about this space realize this is not a 2-year, 3-year game. This is a 10-year game. At which point of time, cyclic 2 years ups and downs don't matter, right? This is the opposite of a Web3 world, right? Where things don't go up and down that quickly, right? So there's a little bit of inertia, which is both good and bad about this industry, right? There's more stability around that. So I think investors who get this get that. And in fact, when you're building real stuff, right? At the end of the day, for Gamajanta, you guys have real stuff on the ground, real operations, real moats, right? Which, for example, consumer internet as a space doesn't necessarily have, right? You could go up and down very quickly. We're building real tech, the real IP, the real value, right? So sure, you may not achieve your perfect goal, but there are multiple other exit points when you're building real stuff, and I think investors see the value in that.
So you're saying that for good ideas, people who are really building stuff, especially in the EV space, there's enough and much out there in terms of financial support. Well, that's good for a lot of people out to hear, because you've actually raised 28 million.
Yeah, recently 27 million.
28 million. at a time when people are talking about the winter. So you have actually broken the trend, really speaking.
Yeah, and also if someone's starting right now, there's never a winter for early stage capital, I think.
Right.
I think in fact that's only going up in India. So by the time, if you're starting a company today, by the time you need like late stage capital, which is like 2 years from now, 3 years from now, I think the cycle will be back. So I think a real founder will also not, you don't start the company based on these cycles.
Absolutely.
Like, you will figure it out. Yeah.
Perfect. So here's the thing. What EV do you use?
I have an electric two-wheeler.
Okay.
No guesses for which one. No price for guesses. And so I have the one of the most original.
Which ones? Which
the
one?
very first Ather 450.
Okay.
Actually, it's not mine. It's actually my dad, because he very proudly went and bought it. That now I use.
So my son built it, and hence I
Yeah. So it's one of that. And as someone who's built the product, I always felt the product's not good enough. So I never actually bought a product. Like I kept saying the next version, but I'll finally pick one up. And on the passenger vehicle, I don't have an electric yet.
Not yet. Okay.
I unfortunately bought a vehicle in 2018, just before all the EVs came. But now I'm now thinking 24. I think I'm not planning to get
Any guess? Any shortlisting?
Oh, Hyundai Ioniq 5. I love it.
Oh, so that's it. So Hyundai Ioniq 5. So you made a.
I like it. I think I'm trying to get myself to see if I should buy it, but not there yet. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. So it's good to see an actual because there are a lot of people who talk about EVs, but then when I ask them this question, what EV do you use? I really get some weird answers that I don't have one. So I always challenge those guys. So
no, I spent enough EV miles on my two-wheelers. I think it's fine.
So good. So what? Let's say 5 years from now, Arun, because I can see this passion for building things, that you have. A couple of years from now, what would Arun be doing? Let's say you've done enough and plenty in Exponent. So what's the next build program that you have in your mind? Or within Exponent or even otherwise?
Couple of years from now?
Yeah, a couple of years from now.
I think there's still so much stuff for us to do. Exponent. I think we have a clear path of what we're going to do for the next 5-6 years. A lot of problems. Like I said, we're just like one city in like one category. So it's just so much more to do.
And when are you going international?
I think there's so much more to do just in India. Like I said, it's commercial vehicles, and I know I sound very boring and very focused, but I think sometimes that helps. So there's so much to do. There's so many problems to be solved. Like for example, my dream is, can we electrify the highways? There are only 1 lakh kilometers of national highways in India, right? Can we electrify, like 1,000 of them, every 100 kilometers, 1,000 of them would be great, right? We just electrify the highways. Like so, like for me, like that's like an active goal I'm trying to celebrate. If we get there, then I think then we've achieved something big.
In all this conversation, we've heard everything, possibly a lot of things about Arun, which in some bits and pieces we knew. Was there one thing about Arun, the entrepreneur, we still don't know anything about? So one thing you need to tell the audience, the viewers.
Well, I talked about me being an introvert. I think that most people don't guess that.
No, they don't. Yeah. That's. I wouldn't have assumed that you are an introvert. So that's one takeaway. So don't go by the looks of Arun, the smart looks of Arun. He's an introvert. So you need to draw him into a conversation.
Yes.
Okay. So the last question, which you always, which you can talk in a jiffy. Why not swappable?
Yeah, favorite question.
Or rather, did I lead it into that answer? Or so, what's your take on swappable batteries versus fixed batteries and this entire conversation around what's happening in this space? And you can be absolutely brutally honest on your view on this.
Oh yeah, for sure. See, it starts with the problem that, let's say you have a swap station. Let's say you have 2-3 vehicles come in and out every hour. You still need to rapid charge the swap battery, else you'll run out of batteries.
Right.
So at the end of the day, swap is an operational band-aid. Right? It's like, hey, I'll take your battery and then you keep going. I'll figure out how to charge in the back end. And if you try to scale up an ecosystem on swap, you'll actually end up needing 2x batteries for every vehicle, which is the opposite of what we should be doing, right? Which makes cost issues, all of that. Already there's a concept of float, right? In battery float, 1.4x is in the industry. It actually gets worse with scale, right? It doesn't get better with scale, right? So yeah, that's.
But then are you discounting the likes of Gogoro and others who successfully, or at least believed to be successfully having solved this swappable?
I think it works very well for a vertically integrated stack where you're like, I want to control everything. It's still not a great solution, in my opinion. But I think a lot of companies have, if you build such a good vehicle, people adopt it no matter what. But if you can check the price point of swap subscription in Taiwan. It's ridiculous. It costs as much as a vehicle on a yearly basis. So I think that's my fundamental problem. Like, I think I like to say we should solve the end case problem.
Right.
So today, if I look at, like I say, from the grid to the vehicle, as you have more vehicles on the ground, you need to transfer energy from the grid to the vehicle faster and faster. You can't just say, I'm going to like solve this using a battery float. It becomes ridiculously hard. The other aspect is from a product perspective, vehicles just get uglier and worse, bulkier with swap. I mean, look at your cell phones, laptops. In the last 10 years, we haven't had a removable battery. Because as products evolve, you want deeply integrated products. So if you want like more safety, more life, more performance, you need deep integration. And that's for a cell phone where you are okay with a 2-3 year life. Here in EV, we want 10-year lives, and it's out there in the in the dust in the road. So the sort of deep integration it needs, swap this doesn't work. And if you look at real vehicles like larger vehicles, you're talking 100, 200, 300 kg batteries. You're talking like the bus we're doing is like it's a 2-3 ton battery.
Right.
Good luck trying to swap that, right? And then trying to get every OEM to use the same battery is another ridiculous problem. Which is that's like saying Hero, Honda, Bajaj, come all of you same engine. No one's going to like agree to it. It's easier to standardize the fuel station. It's easier to standardize ports.
So that's Arun who gave a very definitive view of swappable versus fixed batteries, and he was very unequivocal on his views on. That's very rare, but I'm happy that you did that. So Arun, to wrap this up, I mean, this has been a brilliant conversation. I mean, one of the few people.
Likewise.
One of the few people I love having conversations, and every time we meet, we kind of bump into each other and we have some amazing conversations in India and abroad as well.
Likewise. Yeah.
So, what's your final, what do you say, if there's one thing that you want to leave a message down to the entire audience with on Arun, on Exponent or on EV, what would it be? One final message for everyone to hear.
I mean, that very different things for everything, but I mean, I would just say keep building, and if you're looking to start something in EV space, enough problem statements come.
So if there are people who want to reach out to you, I mean, we'll also, I mean, of course, you can reach out to Arun through his website, but we are also trying to build a community who will engage, discuss all of this. We're going to invite you on further conversations as well in the days to come.
Like I love building, I love to be part of anyone.
Do we catch you in Bangalore or?
Yeah, I'm based out of Bangalore. Easiest way is to buy me coffee and
So next time, guys, you want Arun to give his views on anything in the EV space, entrepreneurship, startup, invite him over coffee.
Yeah, perfect.
And Arun, thank you so much. This has been an amazing conversation, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you so
the
much.
Exponent team as well.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure.
My pleasure as well.
It's an honor to be here. Thanks so much.